Hey there. I wanted to take a minute to show you how I have this set up with Gitpod and GitLab to use kind of to like make a web-based development environment that's built off of a Docker container for a Hugo website that uses both Markdown and ASCII doc for the source formats for all the content. So if you look in here, the content software or the content folder here, we have a bunch of subdirectories. And as an example, under docs for a specific product, we have version year or release versions as like different versions of the documentation that we have scripts that automatically kind of replicate the previous one and go to the next release on that. And so you can see here's all the different technical manuals that we have. And if you go into like a QA plan, this is an ASCII doc document here. So if I just go, let's take a look at this file real quick, and I'll just show it in source. So you can see there's the Hugo header section, and then the ASCII doc header section with all the variable or attributes declared here, and then it jumps right into the main body of the document. So our workflow for this particular project is that every merge request should be sourced from an issue. So we have a bunch, we will make new issues. And then when you're in an issue, we then have this ability to, you can create a merge request and branch. So it'll automatically make the branch and merge request to resolve this issue. So any little updates, we try to track in issues and then create merge requests and feature or development branches for that. So, if we go into the repository and check branches, you'll see we have our main branch, which is the primary sort of production, both staging and production branch, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And then you can see, here's for issue 64 and 68, a couple of merge request branches for issues that have to be finished. So that's how the site works right now, and you can see we have this pull down for different branches. But let's dig in a little bit to how this kind of works behind the scenes. So I do have a Docker image that is used for the continuous integration system. And that same image basically, so we'll just take a look at this first. So this is the CI file for doing all of our merge request builds. So for each merge request, it automatically will, CD into the project directory, do an npm install, and then I am caching the node modules and stuff on that. So every time it does it, it doesn't have to actually install everything. I'm able to hang on to what was installed last time, but it does that just in case anything got added to packages or and then it runs Hugo with build drafts and build future enabled so that we can see any draft or future posts or content with a future publishing date. It's building or it hosts or generates an artifact out of the public directory that gets built from Hugo. And this is only for merge requests. So this lets us do a preview build of every merge request commit to any of the merge request branches. And then we have a build production. So this is our production build, basically just doing a Hugo minify on that. Its artifact again is the public, and it's only for the main branch. So this is a production build, and this is if the Hugo environment is production, or it sets it actually to production, and then does that build. So then so basically only have two builds. We have a merge request build and a production build. Now the production build, there's a little bit of, I'll get to that in a second, but both staging and production have the same build, but they just deploy to different locations. So I'll explain that in a second. So to deploy merge request, we're using the Alpine image on that. We install a few things here you can see in the script. We are using Netlify for this. So it does a Netlify deploy to the site ID. These are stored like the auth token and ID. These are stored as variables within the CI/CD system. And then I'm creating an alias to merge request and then the ID, merge request ID number here. So you'll have mr dash and then the number, or I'm sorry, the ID number here for that. And then we create a merge request description. So we're using the GitLab API here to go ahead and grab that description field out of the JSON for that, and then build a new description, sort of, so taking the existing one and then appending to that a link to MR and then that ID number, dash dash, and then techie support, which is our Netlify site name .netlify.app, and then linking that right here. So you can see that's kind of like the text and then the link. And so this gets the description for the merge request gets automatically updated with a link to the preview for that merge request during this deployment script. And then the last is here, does this curl put and pushes that description up using the GitLab's API to update that description. So you see that happen here. And then there is a dependency, so we need the build merge request to be successful first, and then it can do this deploy merge request. It does set up an environment here, so we just do a review kind of a review folder / and then the merge request and ID, same thing as what we're using for our URLs and everything and like that. And so you have these nice like environments that we just let them auto stop in a week. So typically the stuff's done before, it's like a quick cycle, but in case we want to leave it up for a few days, but it'll automatically stop the environment in a week and kind of shut that down in the environments list. But any changes then, if you do another commit to that same merge request, it'll fire everything up again and be in the same location there. And that's only for merge requests. So this doesn't happen to any commits to main. Deploy staging now. So here's where we have our deploy staging in production. So the deploy staging here using the same environment again with Alpine, and then we add npm in here and get our Netlify CLI. And then we do Netlify deploy here. We have our site ID and authorization token, and in this we alias to staging. So in this case, the URL will be staging techie support.netlify.app instead of this merge request ID. So we're setting that alias automatically. That's from build production dependency. And this gives us our staging URL for checking out what the production build will look like. And that happens on merges to main. So when a merge request is merged to main, then this staging deploy happens automatically, and it pushes that up to staging to that alias here, to this URL. So you can then take a look at that and see, it's kind of sandboxing the build, so we can take a look at staging. If it looks good, then we have a deploy production, which is a manual operation where it does the deploy, and this time it gives it the production flag. So this is going to actually go to our custom domain, which is support.thunderheadeng.com for this particular Netlify site, and it builds production there. So it's this pretty cool thing. So we have merge request previews at specific URLs that are consistent based on their merge request ID. We get those URLs automatically built. We get the environment set up in GitLab. And then when we merge from the merge request to main, we get a staging build automatically. We can go check that out at staging at this URL. And then for sandboxing, and then we get a production build if you do the manual click on that. So if we take a look at these pipelines, I'll just give you an example here of a push to main. Here's one here. So if we go take a look at this, let's go take a look. Where is it at? Yeah, we'll take a look at this here. So what we'll see here is we get that production build and then a deploy to production, which is a manual click. So once you've gone in and looked at the staging site and it looks good and everything's built correctly, you come in here and click play. And that pushes to production. And there's only a few people that have that capability. So it's kind of like a editorial level permission there. And then and you'll get those builds automatically. You can also run the manual deploy to production from this list as well. So if you come into this listing, you can just click the play button, and it'll put whatever was, on the main branch, and from this same build. So from this particular build, it will deploy that content to main. So that actually gives us some rollback capabilities too. So because each of these builds have their own commit that goes with it and everything like that, so we can kind of roll back if we want to. So that's how that pipeline system works. And now, and that's all coming out of using the same Docker container. So if we go back and look at that let's go back to the files here. So if we go look at our GitLab CI/CD here, you'll notice that our build merge request and our production builds are coming from the GitLab registry. We have our own private registry under the support project, which is for the support website. And so we have our own registry for that. And if we go take a look at the container registry, you can see we have this web support image repository and we have builds on that. And so this happens actually in a different place. So we can, this was last updated a month ago. This is latest here, and it's a little 500 megabyte image. And that gives us an Ubuntu environment. It gives us all of the build stuff. So we have Ruby installed and Python, and Hugo is built into there, set at a specific version. And so let's take a look at that real quick. So if we go to web and we go to our docs Docker file, so this is the project for that. All we really have in this little project is the GitLab CI, so we use the CI/CD system on that, a Docker file and a README. And so if we pop into our Docker file here, you can see, it's fixed version of Ubuntu, fixed version of Hugo. We build up some stuff here, what version of ASCII Doctor and ASCII Doctor PDF we want, and that builds that up. And then it installs all the stuff we need and sets up the environment and gets everything going here, and then sets up the working directory, exposes 1313 for live preview. So you could use this image locally, run, an interactive terminal, start up Hugo, get a local host service and all that stuff from this image. So this works pretty well and has everything set up for that. So whenever you make a change to this, the CI/CD system will use the Docker image here and that service, logs in using our registry user password in the registry, which is on our GitLab, basically, then builds, pulls, and pushes, and does everything automatically and updates the image in the registry, which is our private registry. So that all works perfectly and updates that image whenever we want to do that. And then our other CI/CD systems depend on that. And then if we go back to web here, so now let's talk a little bit about the Git pod setup. So we have another Docker file in this project, which is based on, it's almost like an exact copy of the other one, except it has some different capabilities down here at the bottom. And that's to basically add a special user for Gitpod to map that builds directory and link it to the workspace in Gitpod so that they have their own, basically everything happens under workspace / project name. And I have to map that to this other URL so that all the other scripts and everything work correctly within the container, because a lot of those scripts point to this path and not workspace support, because this is the path actually for GitLab's CI/CD system, which is kind of what everything with this whole project is sort of based on, is building in that environment and publishing from that environment. So we just replicate that inside the Gitpod container and then change some ownership here to builds and stuff like that. So Gitpod has ownership over that. So this part, it's all the same up above, except just this little bit at the end to do that. And that could actually probably be just a little include script or something that we throw at the end, but right now we're still kind of working through that with Gitpod to make sure that all works well. So that's the Docker file that we're using. And then we have a YAML file here, which uses that Docker file to build an image and caches that image. And then it runs a task in terminal 1. It does npm install, runs Hugo server, doesn't append the port to the URL, builds drafts. So this is basically like kind of an editing environment setup. So it's spinning up that live preview at port 1313. You can see here, and whenever that port opens and becomes active, it will automatically open that in a preview panel. And then we have all of our VS Code extensions that we're using. And what's nice about this is it stays with the project. So we've kind of determined ahead of time, these are all the extensions that are useful for this specific project. So we spin those up automatically here for that person and include those in the setup. And so with those two files added into the project, then it gives us this ability where we can toggle from the web IDE in GitLab to this Gitpod option. And so now you can go to a specific, let's say I want to go to this branch. So I switch it into that, and then I can click Gitpod, and that launches Gitpod right in the browser. Now I have made some changes to the settings of this, but you'll see how this works. So um, that's pulling the Docker image. This might take a minute. I might cut this down a little bit, but the first time you pull this image for a new workspace, it has to pull the Docker image, build up any, if there's anything cached, it builds it if it hasn't been cached yet, kind of sets up all of the initial conditions here for this preview. And this is workspace specific, and you can leave these workspaces open. So, I'll probably go delete this one after this little video, but you could leave it up, and it has some amount of timeout depending on your plan and all that stuff. So you could just jump right back into it if you're in the same branch and you just go launch the same workspace again. And you can also share the workspaces with other people, and they can be like kind of a live working environment. So it's pretty cool how all of this works together. So here we go. It's almost done. There we go. So now I have changed my settings in Gitpod so that I really get a VS Code environment. So this is just like VS Code. There's another option that they have that you can use, but now I can come into content, and what you'll see here in another terminal, and let's see where that's at. Yeah, so you can see this launch this workspace. It started up and it's open. You can go jump right back into those workspaces again. So here I just came right back in. So once it's spun up, it's really quick to go and get back into those things. And so this is just launching. Here's some stuff that's coming up. And what you can see down here at the bottom is it's building that site now. That terminal is building. So it's building the Hugo site. And it did all the little bits it needed to do in the script to get everything started. And then we'll wait a second for the first build of Hugo. There it is. Now it opened up a port. And so now I can actually open up that preview in a browser. So here's the site preview. Here's the browser of that, right? So now I can go into my content, docs, pick a product, go to a particular version of that. Whatever it was that I was working on, I can go into here to this ADoc, get this out of the way, got all my syntax highlighting, start editing here with the mini map and all that stuff. And as I make changes over here, so let's go to, let's see, this is Pathfinder's 2021 QA plan. So let's go jump into there. We'll go to software QA. Oops, that's the wrong year. There we go. QA plan. And then here's the preface, so the purpose. So if I come in here and I say hello, and I save this, Hugo detects the change, rebuilds the site. Right now, I'm working with Gitpod a little bit to do this automatic refresh through the WebSocket, but it's not quite working yet on their system. But if I just click to manually reload, I get that update. So I can work live, check everything out here in this panel while I'm editing over here. I can Control Z here, save that, it rebuilds. I can then refresh this and get rid of hello. So just the manual refresh or F5 is all you need to kind of update where you're working there. So now I have this nice web-based editor environment with live preview that's specific to this merge request, and can work on that. And then when I'm finished, this is just VS Code. I can, I'm in the correct branch. I can go to my source control and commit changes to that, and it will then trigger the merge request build to the merge request preview URL. In that merge request, it'll update the URL and be able to go look at all that stuff. So when my reviewer comes in, I'm going to go ahead and actually going to delete this. So when our reviewers come in, did I get rid of it? Yeah, I did. That's one thing I've noticed. Sorry about that. When you click to launch your Gitpod, it kind of goes, it doesn't do it in a new tab or a new window. It takes over where you were. So go back and jump into here. So now in this merge request, if I go pop into this, here's that resolve changes after GitLab. Here's that link. So, I can go jump into that directly. Um, there's the preview for the merge request. So as a merge request reviewer, I can come in here and I can see, okay, this is going to close issue number 64. Here's the link to it. I can go look at that. I don't have to spin up Hugo Live or anything like that. It's already been updated every time I do commits. There's been 4 commits. Those all have been accounted for at that URL. Um, you can go through and look at the changes that have been made, review each one of those. You can do discussions on that stuff as, what's been changed and if it's good or not, all of that. So that's super handy from a reviewer's point of view. And if I then need to go jump in and go work on, make changes to something, I can do it both in this editor, right? So I can actually say, I don't like the word there. So I could come in here and do, this insert a suggestion, make changes to that, and then the person who's submitting the merge request can review that and accept that commit. That commit will automatically hit into the merge request. That will trigger the merge request build to happen again. It'll do all of that in the CI/CD system. And if I want to go even deeper and go edit on the branch, um, to like really get the live preview and all that stuff, I can launch that in Gitpod through the same project. So it gives you this live editor that's really nice with live preview, basically VS Code in the web with live preview through Gitpod, um, and all using those Docker container setups that we had before. So hopefully this little tour is interesting. And if you have any questions about it, or if you have any suggestions on how to make this, work better, or if you've done this too, I'd be happy to hear any of that. But so far we've had a lot of success with this. And we're pretty happy that it's working. We're waiting for the little live preview to automatically update. That'll be kind of like the icing on the cake, because then you don't have to hit the manual refresh as you're working on that little browser preview. You can just just hit Control S or save it, and then it'll automatically update and keep you where you are there. So that would be pretty sweet. But other than that, we're pretty happy about it. So any questions? Happy to hear them. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.